that wasn't done here ever. It was like not even an afterthought. They just forgot.
We're Norelle and Danny. We sold our business in Seattle and decided to become digital nomads. Outfitted with a suboverlander as our home on wheels, we're on an adventure of discovery wherever the road takes us. Subscribe and join our journey meeting new people, seeing amazing things, and helping build new ventures and opportunities. This episode is more of a recap and some unpublished clips from our visit to Teen Mania Ministries campus, as well as some bits about our early relationship and how my time at the Honor Academy affected it. So, if you want to jump ahead to the lighter parts of our road trip, skip forward to minute 2350 as we make our way through Mississippi to Tennessee to see my friend Cynthia.
We rewatched that documentary.
Yeah, Mind Over Mania. It's an MSNBC kind of documentary. About interns after the Honor Academy and kind of their experiences, and it was kind of led/mediated by a couple who kind of studies modern day cults.
Well, tell us about the recovering alumni group.
So I don't remember exactly when it was started, but a woman named Micah Ringo started the Recovering Alumni blog, and I believe, if I recall correctly, she was starting it as kind of like a way for her to process her experience, and just more and more previous alumni reached out to her and wanted to share their stories as well. And I think she got over like, it was definitely over 100 stories, including mine, and maybe more than double that, I don't know, of interns who wanted to share their experience, and it just kind of blew up, and I think it definitely played into Teen Mania's downfall a little bit, because parents found the blog before their kids went to the internship, and I'm sure some of them basically said, like, you can't go because of the stories that they read about.
Why do you think it was so traumatic for so many people?
There were a lot of experiences, specifically ESOL, the emotionally stretching opportunity of a lifetime, which is basically like a 2-week-long intensive boot camp where you're sleeping outside and you're wet and you're cold and you're hardly fed anything, and it's pretty emotionally abusive. It was pretty emotionally abusive, in addition to being physically abusive. Yeah.
So, as far as your experience goes, what was the, I don't want to say most abusive part, but the part that made you break?
It was at the end of my internship, the summertime. Basically, the way that the work was allocated within the internship, because we had leadership training in classes in addition to working for the ministry, usually about 30 hours a week, but oftentimes it was more. And during the school year, the majority of the interns were placed in the call centers, whether that be for Global Expeditions, the missionary arm, for Acquire the Fire, the youth conferences, or for the Honor Academy and calling to kind of promote bringing more interns in. And at the end of the school year, it turned into missionary time, where a bunch of kids of like all teenage ages would come in to, you said we're going right here?
Yeah, we're going right.
Okay. They would come in to go on these mission trips, and they do the debriefings. And during that time, there was just a surplus of interns around. If they weren't going on the mission trips to support those, they were stuck on campus. And usually, a lot of the way that they allocated it was to just send a whole bunch more people to the kitchen crew or to the grounds maintenance crew. And what happened for me, because I was in the Global Expeditions Leadership Center, my job was basically to help put on those briefings and debriefings for missionaries. And is the speed limit that I would have been accountable for and required to do as an intern, to the point where some of my core members, which is kind of like my roommates, they reached out to the Honor Academy leadership and basically said, like, this is wrong. Norelle's basically being abused. And the response to that was that my boss basically called me into his office and shamed me for complaining, even though I didn't complain. It was one of my core members. And there wasn't any really resolution to that. And I was basically extremely taken advantage of and not taken care of, and I should have been. I was paying to be there. And yeah, that was kind of the big...
I totally would have gone in. So I just noticed something I guess Norelle's never thought of before. Out of this whole huge campus, there's not a single building that's like an actual like church building with pews and, you know, a pulpit and a cross on top. Everything's convertible because it's almost like, unironically, they're more interested in running an organization and a business than they are about focusing on worship
itself,
or just, it's almost like it's just converted in the first place. But even then, I would think they'd still build a fucking church. Just my thought. I guess my point is the lack of a dedicated sacred space, a sanctuary. Everything here is kind of utilitarian, moving towards a goal, moving people in, moving people out, getting information out, but not all that much space really dedicated really to God, space-wise. So, now that you've been an employer for the past 8 years, do you not only think, or what do you think are the ethical and legal implications of not just your experience at the end of the year, but also the entire setup?
I mean, it was super wrong and super illegal. Like, people should not be treated that way. There should be either, I don't know, like, yeah, I don't know.
Should people be paying to work somewhere?
No. Like, sure, pay for the internship, like, your room and board, and then be paid for the work that you do, at least minimum wage.
You know, the evangelical rebuttal to why not have a dedicated church building is because the church is not the building. The church happens to meet in a building, but at the same time, when you have a whole religious complex, you still need to make sure that the buildings, well, scratch that. What I'm saying is that architecture and our environment shapes our minds. And if you want these kids to be focused on God, give them some dedicated space and an environment where that is the only purpose, not the business operations of a ministry. But give them some space that's reserved exclusively for God. And that wasn't done here ever. It was like not even an afterthought. They just forgot. The mentality is like that. It's really no wonder to me that they lost sight of what they're really about, and that the operations of the ministry left, overwhelmed everything else to an unethical level. I mean, I experienced the backside of all this when Norelle was gone. Might be a story for another time. about the value of sacred spaces from kind of two opposing sides. One was a Catholic priest in the Basilica of San Domenico in Siena, Italy. I used to meet with him every couple of days when I was there for a very interesting reason, and the other would be from the Freemasons, who also build their buildings with the intention to remind the user of, hey, of why they're there, what they're there to do, and it's also super ironic that I'm saying this in the middle of a Walmart.
Currently at Walmart, and this is actually the Walmart that we always used to come to as interns, because it's like 15 minutes from campus.
So again, we end up at Walmart. Sorry I gave you so much trouble over all the years. You actually are kind of useful. Italy, I was supposed to be there with a group from Campus Crusade. No, just burger stuff. I'm good. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I was supposed to be there with a group from Campus Crusade, and yeah, I wasn't going to try to convince Catholics to be Protestants without like understanding who they were and what they were about and everything. So I walked down to the nearest basilica and I struck up a friendship with a guy named Padre Alfredo, and we sat every other day, and he taught me Italian through translating the Bible from English to Italian and back, right in front of the head of St. Catherine, which was kind of creepy. Speaking of Italians, free crackers. Supposed to get baby bells too, but I only saw them up front. They're not in the whole cheese section. The thing to note is the Freemasons and the Catholics both even orient their buildings according to lessons and reasons that are designed to make you meditate on their exact reason, got them, for existence. There's something about that I think people just need in general, especially if they're focusing on something that's supposed to be religious. Anyway, kind of gets me thinking about like the nature of monastic life. I read an article recently about how those things are coming back, and I actually think that's a good thing, so long as there's a balance between the work and the actual practice of the religion. It's a heavy basket. So on the road, we revert to the food of my childhood. Tuna fish, chips, and salsa. Yeah, that tuna's straight out of a can. Don't hate it till you try it.
So what was your overall feeling of being on the Teen Mania campus today?
Honestly, like hold on, start that. And I feel weird not looking at the camera if you're looking at the camera, so maybe do it.
I'm looking at you.
Might be too loud.
Sorry, we had to negotiate a little oversized load.
It was a double wide.
It was a house.
Yeah. I gotta be honest, I felt vindicated to see it shut down.
Makes sense.
I felt like whatever they were doing wasn't really Christianity. It was, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of good people practicing their faith there the best way that they knew how, but there was a lot of collateral damage they didn't really realize, and I felt like the foundation and the core was an assumption about our culture and about Christianity that was way off base. I was never angry at it. It's nice to see when karma comes around. Wanted me to see it for years just to share in the experience, and by this point I had already seen enough photos and videos and stories to put names to places and everything, but initially, just kind of as we were walking around, I didn't really feel much at all. Just kind of, yeah, okay. That's what I expected to see there. I was surprised by Norelle's reaction because I expected her to be more conflicted, but instead it was more like a fond memory, even though her experience was so frustrating. She was frustrated for so long after. And at the same time, relieved to see that Norelle could just get over it.
It was also like more than 12 years ago, so that helps.
Yeah, but at the same time, there are people who are still, in therapy because of that place, and it takes some people decades to recover. But eventually, you just kind of let it go, and didn't take it too personally. And I think part of that is because you realize that at the end of the day, you chose to be there, even though
And I chose to stay for the whole year.
Sure, yeah. And even though it was under, different pretenses, where you thought it was going to be one thing and it ended up slowly becoming something that it wasn't at all what you signed up for, it still was something that you chose to finish.
Yeah.
And you could have walked away at any point because you were, strong and independent, but you also always, finished what you started. And so to that extent, I could see that you were kind of proud that you did it. Even though it was fucked up, that's okay. Life is fucked up. So I guess maybe at the end of the day, what I felt the most was proud of you. In a weird way, because I also kind of want to take my pound of flesh out of them.
Do you want to tell people about your experience of Teen Mania in the beginning?
I guess. I mean, Norelle had basically signed up before we met. And after a week or two of dating, she was like, oh, by the way, I'm going to be leaving.
I didn't say it quite like that. It was much more like when we started, it was going into this relationship, just so you know, I'm leaving in 6 months and I'm not allowed to be in a relationship while I'm there. So.
Well, I mean, so what do I do? They're like, oh, okay, deal's off. Forget about it. Let's just break it. I was like, no, let's keep going and see where it goes, and let tomorrow worry about itself. And then as it came, then it was like, oh, well, okay, yeah, I guess she's really actually going to go do this whole program.
Wait, so you didn't actually think I'd go?
I mean, it was 6 months down the road. Who knew? Who knew, even if our relationship would last 6 months?
True, yeah.
Right? Why not, enjoy the time together, at least while you were here? And then I realized about 3 or 4 weeks into the relationship that I was, totally in love with you. Big L love. And then I was like, okay, so, this is going to be a long haul thing. That's going to be interesting. So, when you finally left, I just decided to be a monk for a year.
So for you, what did a monk for a year, what did that look like?
Basically, I was gonna, run the risk of not dating for a year on the chance that you'd be back and still into me, because I thought that if I ended up in a different relationship and then you came back, then things wouldn't work out. Either because I'd be with somebody else that I probably liked less, or you would not necessarily think less of me, but think that I couldn't be as I felt like it was an extra just show of hey, I'm into this, and that you would appreciate that. And I was into you enough that seemed like a worthwhile investment of my time and energy. Also, made a couple of other self-disciplines, like I wasn't gonna drink. It's not like I was a big drinker. I was like underage anyway, but it was, you know, in college, and so it was like, okay, yeah, probably not to, you know, best not to get into any stupid situations as well. I also was living on my own in my own apartment in the U District, and so it really kind of became a year of just study for me, because I had just come out of all the stuff at Bellevue College, where I was student body president of the Honor Society, and legislative liaison, and all this and that. And so, you know, I told myself I wasn't going to do anything else as far as extracurriculars or work. Just, you know, hit the books as hard as I can and study. And it really changed my view of myself, my view of the world, my view of politics, my view of religion. All shifted that year. And I think that not the abstinence thing, you know, for the year was the primary factor, but it was just like the self-discipline of taking that time and focus on myself and becoming who I need to be, independent of anything else.
So do you think it helped you visualize the stories that I've told you a little bit more, or did you already like have a good idea for that because of the pictures?
No, I had a pretty good idea. I didn't need to see the space in order to like get it. I think that what matters more is the people.
Yeah.
And I've met most, or at least some of the top key people, and I know them. But I haven't met, you know, the leaders.
Yeah.
But I know their type because I grew up in the same, you know, evangelical, right-wing environment, and I know the ideologies and the self-justifications and the self-righteousness of those people. And I've been, you know, one of those people before. And that's where the heavy cloud comes for me, not the place. But it's interesting to watch and see how, despite those people's pride, everything turns back to dust.
Yeah. So for today, we're headed from the Lindale area, where we just visited the old Teen Mania campus, to the Jackson, Mississippi area, and we're gonna stay at LaFleur Beach State Park, something like that. And it's on a little lake. And then tomorrow we're gonna drive up to Knoxville, Tennessee to see my friend Cynthia. It's LaFleur's Bluff State Park.
Yeah, what would a beach be doing out there?
Yeah. But I mean, there's a lake, a beach. I knew we could. Don't worry about it. We are now in Louisiana, state number 10.
Or 12?
11 if by Danny's count, but it's 10.
I think it's 13.
It's 10. So Louisiana has state troopers about every 2 miles waiting to catch people who are speeding. Luckily, we are not one of those people. However, we've noticed...
Well, I mean, a little bit.
We've noticed, like, wow, it's just a lot more than we've seen in any other state along this journey, or pretty much any other. But, like, of course, this is the longest road trip we've ever taken. But yeah, just think that's interesting.
It's definitely more than Arizona or Texas.
Yeah, but we won't be in Louisiana for too much longer for this piece of the trip. We will be back, though.
Yeah, in like a month.
Yeah. Hit New Orleans again later. Guys, we just saw a Cruise America going the opposite direction, like toward Texas. And we haven't seen one of those since...
Before Texas.
Canyonlands or Arches? Definitely Arches.
We didn't see any in Mesa Verde or since.
Yeah, none in Mesa Verde because it was technically off season, even though they were still open. And then none since then. So maybe we'll just call it Canyonlands to be fair. But there are Cruise Americas on the eastern United States. There was no welcome to Mississippi, but
they don't want us here.
We're in Mississippi, and it's state number 11.
12.
11. 12. That is definitely a beaver. Look at that tail.
Wow. For the record, everybody, this is the second wildlife that we have seen in Mississippi. The first one was a possum. Don't care.
Nope. Swallowing off.
Bye, dude.
Good morning from Jackson, Mississippi. Look at our gorgeous campsite on this pretty little lake. It's LaFleur's Bluff State Park. That's where we're at. And we are heading to Knoxville, Tennessee to see one of my besties, Cynthia, today. I'm really excited.
All right, time to sign this agreement with Brian and make it official. I'm actually super excited.
Another miss. LaFleur Bluff State Park, no stickers. We're getting seriously behind, and it's not for lack of trying. And I'm not sure what we're gonna do.
I mean, we could order them on Amazon, but that feels dirty.
But what else are we gonna do? I don't know.
I mean, we can't spend half a day hunting down a sticker.
No, we can't.
Michael Matlock will find a way to beat you.
So we caved and had to order a sticker for Lake Tawakoni, which will arrive at Cynthia's house while we're there. And then because it wasn't on Prime, but it was shipping like soonish, but a little bit longer, the sticker for, or no, other way around. Lake Tawakoni is going to Danny's cousin's house in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we'll be early next week, and it'll be there by next Wednesday. And then the sticker for LaFleur Bluff State Park, where we stayed last night, will be at Cynthia's place by Friday. Just a big mess, but...
And I don't feel as dirty about it as I thought I would.
So, in total, we still got 2 stickers for these places where we've stayed, and
because we earned it.
We did earn it. I don't know how well it's going to show up, but I'll show you here in a second. So last night, Danny and I were editing our Grand Canyon Part 1 video, and we heard this...
You guys better watch it.
Yeah, watch it. We heard this thump, like that sounded like something somewhat heavy landing on our car. Like heavier than a squirrel, but not like a mountain lion or anything. It was, and we saw lots of possum running around the campground, and then we also saw a beaver. Of course it wasn't a beaver. We knew that.
Yeah.
We thought it might be a possum, but we didn't hear any like scratching noises like their claws or anything. And then when Danny stuck his head out, like he didn't see anything around. So it must have gotten away pretty quick. But we're driving along here on our way to Cynthia's house, and he looks up on the windshield and realizes that he sees paw prints.
What I think of paw prints. You guys are gonna have to comment.
They,
let me know
yeah,
what you think.
they look like paw prints.
It could just be, dry.
But it's like on the windshield, like it was a little grubby.
Okay, just show
yeah,
me.
so I'll
Okay.
show you here in a second. So these right here.
See, it looks like little fingers right there.
Yeah.
Not really totally sure. Like this one's a little smudgy.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell.
And they're pretty close together, but
Yeah.
it's the only evidence we found at all. So
Yep. Pretty sure it's possum though.
could be a possum. It just needs a thumb with the 4 fingers there. There should be a thumb on the side if
Yeah.
it's a possum. So
Might have been a campground cat as well.
could have been. But so far, that's the most interesting thing that's happened today because we've just been driving.
A lot of driving, and
Yep.
we have a lot of ways to go.
All right, here are the rest of the prints, I think. There. I think it was probably a cat. Some sort of visitor last night. We probably smelt whatever we had for dinner.
I was messing around with stuff, and I totally missed the Georgia sign.
By messing around, she means stuffing her face with string cheese.
Yeah, I was eating string cheese. But we are now in Georgia for a hot second. We're trimming the the northwest corner of Georgia on our way to Tennessee. So this is state number 13. We cannot win. I saw the Tennessee sign. I had my phone out in time, and a goddamn semi-truck got in my way. But we're now in Tennessee, state number 14.
Great thing. If you have any
All right.
things that can float away on your car on the top,
So Cynthia wants me to take this door off its hinges,
and then obviously
cut it in half so that it becomes a Dutch door. And it's a hollow door. And maybe flip the doorknob, so I'm gonna have to get creative.